So again, we are introducing the working groups. As you already know, we have 3 different focal points. So I'm going to introduce you first of all people who are going to manage these groups. For the first one, cultural centers in metropolitan areas, we have Ivo Peters with us. He is the director of the cultural center Este, located in one of the Brussels districts. And not less important, he was one of the co-founders of the ENCC. He has around 30 years of experience working at the local level. So, Ivo, nice to introduce you and welcome to Murcia. The second group will work around cultural centers in urban areas. Luis Prada and Jesus de la Peña will run this group. At this point, I think you already know Jesus de la Peña well enough, so just let me tell you a couple of things about Luis Prada. First of all, welcome to your hometown. It was 10 years ago that Luis moved to Germany. Last 8 years, he has worked at the coordination office of ENCC, and currently he's also, I think he said before, but I'm going to repeat it, the international project coordinator of the cultural department of the city of Nuremberg in Germany, of course. And the third group will work around the cultural centers in rural areas. Beate Kegler will be the one in charge of this group. She has also a large experience as manager of a socio-cultural organization of 19 villages in the northwest of Germany. And currently, she's leading the Arctic, a cultural organization that assembles people with and without disabilities in artistic work. After these presentations, I'm going to give the floor to Ivo Peters. Ivo, please.
Thank you. First I have to say that I have good news and I have bad news. Let me start with the good news. A few minutes ago I discovered that all of us will have the possibility to speak our own language in the working groups, because there is a whole team of nearly 20 translators present, most of them students at the university, who can translate from Spanish, French and English to the other languages. So a great applause for the organizer now already and this possibility of the translation. So this possibility of translations facilitates your bad news. That means that you have the task now in the next few hours to choose for one of the 3 working groups. Why this is so difficult? Because it's not an obvious entrance to divide cultural centers, just on the place where they are located. So, but for us, this was the only way to try to make some work groups and to try to find some similarities between the participants of this conference. It was Beata who introduced already a year ago the idea, why not once talking about the real rural areas and being cultural, artistic, on an artistic level, active in these rural areas. It was a director of a cultural center in Belgium, in a city of about 70,000 inhabitants, who asked last meeting in Zagreb, it's hard for me to find partners in this network as running a cultural house, and we are the main cultural institute in our city, and we are the key actor in our city on culture, as well on socio-cultural as on artistic field. So it's hard for me to find partners in the UCC on that level. And then thirdly, me myself, I'm part of this big metropole, Brussels, but in only a small district of this Brussels. But we are really strong, having 22 community centers, and in global those 22 form a large venue for the whole of Brussels. and by the cooperation and the networking between us, we can do quite high-level things, as well as real neighborhood work, what we understood from the presentations earlier by the local organizers. So this is the reason why we came to those 3 groups, but it's not easy. Only yesterday I discovered that some people present here, even when they have a village or a city with the same amount of inhabitants and the same type of cultural house, that the one is saying, oh, I'm definitely going to take part in this rural area work group, and the other said, I'm definitely going to take part in the urban areas. Just, it's not easy, so to choose. In the group, in the work group, I will try to guide through those hours. Is, I think, the most important issue that a very large village, what is large, starting a few 100,000 inhabitants to millions, where cultural centers on the same level, having a horizontal network and having different ways of structuring this network, or on a very centralized way, or on a very decentralized way, with a real common approach on accountancy, on programming, on top-down programming or bottom-up programming system. So when you are part of this kind of cities and networks, please join our work group. That's up to you. Now I'm going to give Beata the floor why she would like you to invite to her work group.
Okay, I start my marketing strategy now. I'm Beate Keker, you heard it, from northern Germany. I live in an area at the edge of the known world with a lot of black and white cows and sheep and dikes and lighthouses. And about, I think, 20 years I'm now in cultural work, social cultural work in rural areas. And the last 3 years I started research on the topic of cultural work in rural areas, and I found that it's quite different to what we find in cities, what we find in metropole areas. We remark in the last years that there's a new interest in rural areas. There are dancing in the river, or there are musicals on the dikes, or shows in the forest, but that's not what I mean with social cultural work in rural areas. That's just another kind of urban visit to rural areas. What we want to talk in the workshop is more about those houses, those organizations in rural areas who try to create or to work with the people living there with daily cultural work, who create their work with and by the inhabitants of villages, of farmhouses, of small rural cities, far away from the urban areas. When we look on a map on Europe, we see that about 90% of all the areas are really rural, and half of the inhabitants of whole Europe live in rural areas. But on the other hand, the political deciders, those people who define what is culture, they often think from an urban kind of view, and so the money is often led to this metropole area, to the culture in the urban cities, but not in the villages, not in the rural area. And I think we have to find kind of networks to look what we do, what is really so important in this cultural work in rural areas, to get louder and to say that's even important not only in the cities, but it's also important in the villages, what we do. And yes, to focus a little bit more the view of the politicians, what is happening in the villages. And only to name one point, if we look at the demographic changes, we see a lot of challenges, especially concerning the villages. And I think cultural work there can be a medium to stabilize and to accomplish this development which comes to the people in the villages. But we can speak about challenges and chances of this work in our workshop. We want to learn from each other what are the differences, what are the similarities, and we, of course, we want to look what could we do together, what could be the use of an European network of cultural work in villages, of cultural houses in small villages. I think that should be done in the third part of our workshop. If you're interested in this workshop, so come and join it, and I give the microphone to Luis. Oh, you have one.
What I would like to do is very similar but a bit different. Basically, my workshop is about cultural centers located in cities, and I will focus it a lot in going through concepts that we all use, but they are defined very differently in different places, in different cities, in different countries. And I would like to find the common points between the participants and focus in the possibilities of common work. So I'm kind of a project guy, so I would like to let you pitch a project or an idea, if you have one, to present your own context, the context of your city, to see what is similar, what is different, but to focus it in which possibilities of working together we have. Is it something there we can exchange? And that's for me also the essence of ENCC, so that's what I would like to work with. But it will depend a lot on who is on the working group, so we will just start, see who is there and what you're interested in, and go with that. That's for me. I hope you were all convinced and will participate.
Hey, just last word on the work groups. The main difference between this opening session of the conference and the work groups is that really in the work groups we consider that each of us, each of the participants is an expert in his own field, in his own city or his own situation. So in the first session, at least we expect a global exchange of how we work, who we are, and what kind of types of centers. And that's what Luis also is trying to find similarities in concept and structures and work between each other. And in the second, and also the main session now, the opening session, had a bit in the questions, the same evolution. What are the problems that we are facing nowadays? And also in the questions, it seemed that the crisis is in one country to another quite different, of influence on the cultural field, on the cultural work of the cultural centers. And last but not least, in the last session, we hope, as we did in Zagreb, as we did in Helsinki, in the previous meetings, we hope that you have between each other's ideas for the new Erasmus Plus program, for the new Creative Europe program. We don't have the text now at this moment of them, but in the next months, the NCC office will be glad to help you to try to find a way for cooperation and making an application when you have between each other ideas to start new projects together in Europe. And a last remark, in our work group, there will be 2 presentations at least. That means that we will do a presentation on the situation of our centers in Brussels, and Clemens will explain the networking in the city of Linz in Austria. So, have a nice evening.
Thank you very much for your quickness and for your combining words. So we're having more time to listen to you, to listen to your questions. So if you want to ask for one of them, raise your hand, please. If there are any doubts, any questions, Luis, yes. I know everything, every of you has chosen, yes, the group. I think it's, I don't know if anyone will change it after
Aquí no
listening to you.
esto para allá sí, lo que no aquí, lo que seguro que no
It's the
se
moment
esto quizás a veces.
I don't know if to change, but to resolve any doubt or any question for them. So everything is clear? Okay? Well, let me remind you a couple of things before we are finishing this afternoon. We have now time for dinner in just more or less 25 minutes, okay? Just to leave this place, turn right, then on the left. If you have any doubt, you can ask anybody from the staff. And I remind you, tonight at 9 p.m., the spectacle of flamenco dancing. I expect all of you know how to get to that videos. If not, you can ask your staff too. And see you again tomorrow morning at 9:30 a.m. with the lecture from Elizabeth Meyer. So, thank you very much for coming, and we are seeing in the catering room. Thank you.